I'm not going to be talking about any research over here, just peripherally, but I want to talk about a conservation project that our team has been working on for the last few years to try and conserve this critically endangered bird species called the Bougainvillea tricolor. And when I say the team is made up of NGOs like Rainforest Trust and WCS India, the Arunachal Pradesh Forest Department, and most importantly by the Bugun community or the Bugun tribe of a village called Singchung. This landscape is in the West Kameng district, which is in western Arunachal Pradesh. You're seeing part of that landscape here, Eagle Nest Wildlife Sanctuary, which has sort of become a very iconic protected area now, is outlined in white. You're seeing to the left the plains of Assam, so that's towards the south. And north of Eagle Nest Wildlife Sanctuary are the community lands of Singchung village of the Bugun tribe. And those lands, which are within that yellow outline, are entirely owned and managed by the village council of Singchung village. So it's a traditional form of land management where decisions are taken at the community level, at the village council level about land use and so on, rather than at individual levels and having individual land holdings. So Singchung village is where all this action is happening. And this is part of a global biodiversity hotspot, which is the Himalayas biodiversity hotspot, exceptionally rich in, name any taxonomic group, exceptionally rich in diversity. And this is just a graph of bird species richness across the world. The darker the color, the higher the number of breeding bird species. And the Eastern Himalayas is amongst the top 3 sites across the world for bird species diversity. So it's an incredibly diverse landscape. Now, like I was saying, this is a highly biodiverse area and has a variety of threatened species, vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered, like plant species on the left, like the Fairy's lady slipper orchid, the Himalayan yew, and Gymnocladus asamicus, which is critically endangered. A number of vulnerable bird species like the beautiful nuthatch, the rufous-necked hornbill, and modern straw endangered and vulnerable mammals like the black bear, the red panda, wild dog, clouded leopard, marble cat, and the Asian elephant. In fact, this is a site where this is the highest site where the Asian elephant can be found. You can see footprints of elephants in the snow in Eagle Nest Wildlife Sanctuary. It's a special place for the elephant. But of course, the most flagship species in this landscape is the Bougainvillea tricolor, which was first seen in 1996, like Bharat had a question yesterday in his quiz. First seen in 1996 by Ramana Atreya, who's an astrophysicist and an ecologist now based at ISER Pune. And after 1996, for 10 years, nobody did anything about it, and until in 2006, when Ramana managed to catch a couple of these individuals of the Bougainvillea tricolor and have them described based on their song as well as their feathers, which were deposited as type specimens. And it's a spectacular bird. You see a male on the top and the female below. It's got a distinctive song. It can't be confused with anything else, and it's a pretty bird. It's quite surprising that it hadn't been described before, that it hadn't been discovered before. In fact, even if the Bugun community does not distinguish this species from other species that might be of similar, taxonomic. But when Ramana described, he named it after the Bugun community. So it's called the Bougainvillea tricolor because it's only found in the lands of the Bugun community. Again, what you're seeing in the middle here is the outline of the lands owned by the Singchung village, and the little white polygon inside is the entire global range of the Bougainvillea tricolor, which is about 2 square kilometers. I mean, look at the scale bar at the bottom over there. It's that line is 4 kilometers long. The entire known global range of the Bougainvillea tricolor is 4 square kilometers. About 2 square kilometers. And within this range, the maximum of maybe 20 birds in this area. So there are about 3.5 times more people listening to this talk right now than there are Bougainvillea tricolors in the entire world. And even within its range, it's a habitat specialist. It occupies ravines, so you won't find it in areas that have gentler slopes. You won't find it in areas that are contiguous, sort of. You will find it in ravines. And so those are the sort of territories over there on the right in yellow, which are all the ravines within this this range of this species. And so, in terms of threat, if you were to look at habitat specialization, local abundance, and geographical range, this species is sort of the worst, has the worst form of rarity. It's a habitat specialist. Its local abundance is low, and its geographical range is tiny, and that's what's called the sixth form of rarity. And so it's vulnerable to things like environmental stochasticity and demographic stochasticity and so on. And what are the threats it's facing right now? That the two major threats are climate change and habitat loss. If you look at the left again, that's the Bougainvillea cicala and the range that it occupies. And Lama Camp, which is sort of the stronghold of the Bougainvillea cicala, is showing very clear patterns of climate change on bird species. And this is some of the more formalized work that we've done recently. On the right side is a graph showing you low elevation species on the x-axis below zero, to the left of zero, and high elevation species to the right of zero on the x-axis. And the change in the frequency of reporting of species over time using eBird data. So this is a birding hotspot, and from eBird data, you can see that low elevation species are increasing in their frequency of reporting over time, whereas high elevation species are showing declines in their frequency of reporting over time. And that's because birds are moving up in response to climate change. As mountains become warmer and tropical mountain species need to move up to stay within the same environmental niche or the same thermal niche. That's a pattern that we're seeing with tropical mountain species across the world. And so the Bougainvillea cicala has very little place to go. If it's moving up, then the highest ridge line over there, which is marked in yellow, is where it can go. There's no area above that at all. And so it's likely that it will reach that ridge line, and then it will just stop. It will go locally or extinct because it's run out of space. The other problem is habitat loss. So what you see on the right, these farms are actually what you can see just outside the Bougainvillea cicala's habitat at the bottom right. So it's very important to conserve unbroken tracts of forests across the entire elevational gradient to allow these species to move up into primary forest and be somewhat resilient against climate change. Now, the other problems are hunting of small birds, which is indiscriminate. It doesn't matter. No particular species are targeted. Any species, anybody with a catapult going through this area will hunt any bird that. And Bougainvillea cicala with such a small population size, we don't know what the removal of 2, 3, or 4 birds might have on the population. And then there are dry season fires, which are a huge problem, leading to massive loss of habitat. And so, with all this high biodiversity and the Bougainvillea cicala being sort of a flagship, we mooted to the village council of Singchung the idea of creating a community reserve, which is a kind of protected area under Section 38 of the Wildlife Protection Act, and a unique kind of protected area because the land, even if a community reserve is created, land ownership does not pass to the government, but land ownership remains with the village community, and the management committee is the village community itself. So it's a very decentralized form of. So we consulted with the Bougainvillea community about potentially having a community reserve of this form. And by then, bird-based ecotourism had taken off in eagle nest in a big way, thanks largely to Ramana Atreya and Indi Glow's efforts. And so there was interest in birds, and there was interest in protecting these birds. And we had, multiple consultations with the village council and lots of deliberation on boundaries and the rules and regulations and so on. And in 2017, finally, the village, Singchung village, decided to set aside 17 square kilometers of its land as a community reserve, which encompasses the entire known range of the Bougainvillea Chikla, and that's the notification of that on the right. And that was a long process because the boundaries had to be resolved. The boundaries were sometimes uncertain between various tribes or between various villages. Those had to be resolved, and then Singchung itself, the community had to sit down and talk about what land were they willing to put aside versus what land would they still require to expand, for example, agriculture in the future, or use for timber, for subsistence, for house building, or extract non-timber forest produce like allspice and bamboo. But this happened in 2017, where the community reserve was declared, and the rules and regulations were then subsequently framed. And it's basically like a protected area now, where none of these activities are allowed. No hunting, no fishing, no felling of forests, no fire lighting, none of that stuff. And all these rules and regulations are sort of placed prominently at the borders of the community reserve. And this is all with support from Rainforest Trust, monetarily, and administrative support from Wildlife Conservation Society. In the meanwhile,
2 minutes left, Umesh. Yeah.
2 minutes?
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. We identified Bugun youth as rangers, and there are 9 men and young women, and 1 woman who work today as rangers. They've been trained intensively in GPSUs. We actually had one of the STF people who was in charge of part of the team that Nat Veerapan come and teach these rangers. There's a checkpost. There are 3 checkposts now, 3 anti-poaching camps. 1 checkpost that is manned 24/7 at the entrance to SPVCR, which is the only entrance to the Singchung Village Community Reserve. And there's continuous patrolling and firefighting happening by the staff of the reserve. And so, just to wrap up over here, the community lands of Singchung Village are highly biodiverse, rich in biodiversity. 70 square kilometers of those were set aside as a community reserve to protect the Bougainvillea Chikla. And recently the community has decided to add another 30 square kilometers to this community reserve, and that spans an elevation from 1,200 meters to 3,300 meters, which is a 2,000-meter elevation of gradient. And so there is some space for low elevation species to move up and retain populations and remain resilient to climate change, species like the rufous neck hornbill. And hopefully that is going to help conserve a large amount of biodiversity in the short to medium term in this landscape.